My son stole my house, Lorraine said flatly, like the verdict was already written across the courtroom. Ethan laughed until she hit play. His voice filled the room. If she fights it, we'll say she's losing it. Gasps. Silence. The judge leaned forward. Lorraine didn't flinch. I gave him life. He gave me an eviction notice. Wait, before we go any further, I got to ask, where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments and don't forget to subscribe. Suburban Minnesota. Late fall evening, air sharp with the scent of burnt leaves and betrayal. The key didn't fit. Lorraine tried again, jiggled it, flipped it, then stared at the front door like it had grown a mouth and spluttered out. The porch lights were on, but the welcome mat was gone. Literally. She blinked at the bare concrete where it used to sit. Live, laugh, listen, gone. A familiar voice broke through the chill behind her. You're not supposed to be here, Mom. Ethan's voice, low, businesslike. The tone he used with clients when they asked for contingencies he didn't want to offer. Lorraine turned slowly. Her son stood near the garage, dressed like he was headed to a networking event, pressed slacks, wool coat, no warmth in his eyes. I just got back from Diane's, she said. What do you mean I'm not supposed to be here? You agreed, remember? Temporary transfer for tax and title streamlining. He approached the steps but didn't offer to help with her bag. We handled everything while you were out of town. I agreed to no such thing. Her fingers tightened on the handle of her overnight tote. Ethan sighed, a sound that carried decades of unspoken irritation. You signed the digital forms, Mom. You said it was fine. Trish has the paperwork. A flicker of something unspoken hung behind his words. Guilt? No, calculated regret. The kind people wear like cologne when they're sure they'll get away with it. Where's my key? Lorraine asked. We changed the locks. The words hit her gut like a misstep on black ice. He didn't shout, didn't rage, just said it like he was reminding her the garbage pickup had moved to Thursdays. That night, Lorraine sat in her car at the edge of the cul-de-sac, engine off, heater running in fits. Her breath fogged the window as she stared at the porch she once painted with Charles. The same porch where she'd handed Ethan his prom corsage. Now it belonged to someone else, apparently to her son. She turned on the dome light and began rummaging through her bag, wallet, a granola bar, loose Advil. The folder with her property records wasn't there. Her fingers went colder than the air outside. Flashback, 2 years ago. She sat in the sunroom with Ethan and Trish. We'll just consolidate the documents digitally, he'd said, sipping his oat milk latte. Makes things cleaner for taxes, and if anything ever happens to you, it'll already be sorted. Charles had only been gone a year. Lorraine had nodded, too tired to fight paperwork. Now she realized they'd counted on that. At 11:43 p.m., she knocked on the side door of the Coulsons' house. Greg answered in sweatpants, blinking under the porch light like he'd seen a ghost. Lorraine? His eyes flicked toward the house behind her. You okay? Not exactly, she said, voice thin but composed. Got locked out, long story. Could I borrow your couch? Greg hesitated. Yeah, sure, just for the night. Just for tonight. She didn't say more, didn't need to. Greg's wife, Lisa, brought her a blanket and a weak smile before retreating up the stairs. Nobody asked questions they didn't want answers to. Lorraine sat stiffly on the edge of the Coulsons' couch. She pulled out her phone, battery at 18%. She tapped open her email, hoping for anything that made less sense than reality. It was right there in her inbox. Subject line, deed transfer confirmation, Hennepin County Clerk. She opened it with a shaking thumb. New owner, Ethan Madsen. Former owner, Lorraine Madsen. Status, revoked. She stared at the word like it had teeth. Her house. The home she bought after Charles passed. The place where she'd refinished the cabinets herself and taught Ethan how to check a circuit breaker. Legally, it now belonged to him. Not even a co-owner. She'd been erased. Down the hall, the Coulsons' dog barked once, then went quiet. Lorraine didn't hear it, didn't feel the couch under her anymore. Only one thought rose through the blur. If they change the locks, I'll change the rules. And that night, in borrowed pajamas and a borrowed life, Lorraine began planning her return. Not as a mother, as a storm. Hennepin County Records Office. A chilly morning wrapped in bureaucracy and betrayal. The clerk's nails were painted mint green. They tapped against the keyboard like rain on glass as Lorraine sat across from her, hands folded so tightly her knuckles ached. Here we go, the clerk said, voice polite but mechanical. Parcel number 1192027, single-family residence, title last transferred 2 weeks ago, new owner listed as Ethan Madsen. She paused, side-eyeing Lorraine. Relationship listed, son. Lorraine's stomach twisted, but she didn't flinch. And previous owner? The clerk turned the monitor slightly, highlighted in red. Lorraine Madsen, status, voluntary release. She whispered, voluntary? It says here the property was filed as a gift transfer, non-sale, marked for intergenerational estate restructuring. She turned back to Lorraine with a sympathetic smile. Pretty common. Estate planners do it all the time. I never gifted him my home, Lorraine said, her voice calm but sharp. And I never signed any transfer. The clerk's smile faded. Well, someone did. Back in her car, Lorraine dialed Ethan. He picked up after 2 rings. Mom, he said, like a businessman late for a conference, you've been to the clerk's office, you've forged my name. A pause. Don't be dramatic. It was a simplified transfer. You said yes. You just don't remember. You were tired, grieving. Don't gaslight me, Ethan. It's for your own good. Houses need upkeep, taxes, roof work. You don't need that stress at your age. Besides, Trish and I are optimizing the property value. You mean flipping it? Lorraine said flatly. He chuckled. You'll thank us later. The house is better in younger hands. She hung up without another word. Her hand trembled, but her eyes didn't. She didn't cry. She drove. Mara lived 15 minutes away in a historic brick duplex that smelled like lemon oil and old books. Lorraine hadn't seen her in 5 years. Not since Charles's memorial. Lorraine? Mara blinked in surprise, drying her hands on a dish towel. God, it's been… Wait, what's wrong? Lorraine handed her the deed printout, the highlighted voluntary scroll still burning through the page. 10 minutes later, they sat at Mara's dining table, a growing pile of legal documents and bitterness between them. He didn't just lie, Mara said, scanning the document. He used your digital signature, copied from an old power of attorney form. This wasn't estate planning, this was identity fraud. Lorraine stared at the tea Mara had placed in front of her. It was untouched. She couldn't taste anything anymore. Can we prove it? We can bury him in it, Mara said. This is financial elder abuse, forged consent, false transfer of property. It's a felony, and a damn serious one. Lorraine exhaled slowly, deliberately, like releasing old smoke from a house fire she didn't start. Mara leaned forward. What do you want to do? Lorraine looked up. Her voice didn't waver. Treat him like a stranger at my door. Later that evening, she returned to the Coulsons, politely declining a second night on their couch. She needed quiet, needed her own thoughts, and not someone else's hospitality. Instead, she parked behind the church on Fremont Avenue, angled the seat back, and pulled out a small notebook she always kept in her glove compartment. She wrote, Ethan thinks this was about a house, but it was about erasure, and now it's about precision. The cold didn't bother her anymore. Rage had its own heat. She tucked the notebook back in the console, turned her phone to silent, and looked out across the parking lot, moonlight bouncing off frost-stiff leaves and old gravel. This wasn't grief anymore. This was groundwork. And Ethan had just made the worst kind of mistake. He didn't lock her out. He woke her up, suburban Minnesota, Saturday afternoon, new paint fumes, old memories, and the quiet fury of a woman reclaiming space. The for sale sign was propped on the edge of the yard like a trophy. Beneath it, open house 12 to 3 p.m. Lorraine adjusted the collar of her navy peacoat and stepped onto the sidewalk. Her heels clicked against the stone path she once laid herself brick by brick in the summer after Charles died. Now strangers parked crookedly along the curb, wandering toward the house like they had any right to dream in it. Inside, the scent of lemon pledge fought against fresh paint. The kitchen island was staged with a bowl of fake limes and brochures printed in full color. The same island where she used to leave notes for Ethan when he'd sneak in late, smelling of cheap beer and borrowed confidence. A voice floated in from the living room. And we redid this space with a minimalist post-Candela vibe, Trish chirped. Tons of natural light, perfect for entertaining. Lorraine stood in the doorway just long enough to make eye contact. Trish blinked, faltered mid-sentence. Her glossy lips parted, but no words came. Lorraine smiled. You must be the agent. Lovely job staging. Did you repaint the trim or just Photoshop it? A couple nearby chuckled, oblivious. Lorraine turned to them. "I've been watching this place for years," she said, tilting her head toward the hallway. "Incredible bones. Survived every storm since '92. The couple nodded, interested. "Did you live nearby?" the man asked. "I was nearby," she said. "And inside for 30 years. Trish stepped in fast. "Excuse me, this area is for pre-qualified buyers." Lorraine ignored her. She moved toward the mantel, now adorned with sterile, generic art. No family photos, no Charles, except her breath caught. Half hidden behind a box of staging supplies, poking from under a stack of placemats, a small black and white frame. Charles in his navy dress blues holding a newborn Ethan. Lorraine reached for it. Trish saw. "You shouldn't be here," Trish hissed. "You're not on the deed." Lorraine ran her thumb over the photo's corner. "You missed this one. Sloppy. Out now." But Lorraine turned to the young couple who'd followed her curiously. "You know," she said softly, "when a home's been stolen, by fraud, not by fate, it tends to carry that weight. The walls remember." The woman looked unsure now. "Stolen?" Trish's face paled. Lorraine tucked the photo gently into her coat and spotted something else on the coat rack by the entry. Her scarf, burgundy wool, handmade, the one Charles had bought her from a stall in Door County. She plucked it off the hook. "Seems you missed another piece," she said. Trish looked like she might combust. Lorraine turned to leave, the wind in her coat like a cloak. But halfway down the walk, she pulled out her phone. "Mara," she said when the line picked up. "Yeah, it's active, tour groups, realtor lies, the whole show." She paused, watching the couple step back from the porch and return to their car. "Let's slow this deal down." Back in her car, she placed the photo of Charles on the passenger seat. "Don't worry," she murmured. "They tried to sell us out." Her hand rested briefly on the frame. "But I'm not done buying time." Downtown Minneapolis, late afternoon, bank walls, legal folders, and a mother reading her son's betrayal in black ink. Lorraine sat across from the bank associate in a glass cubicle, the kind meant to feel transparent but somehow made everything feel exposed. "Of course, Mrs. Madsen," the young man said, tapping the keyboard. "We can pull all activity from the last 3 years. Would you like paper copies or digital access?" "Both," Lorraine said. Her voice had the precision of someone who'd stopped apologizing for sounding firm. As he printed the records, Lorraine's eyes landed on the bank calendar. October 17th circled in red, her birthday. She remembered that day. Trish had sent a group text that read, "Happy 72 to the Queen herself." But Ethan hadn't called. Now she understood why. The papers slid across the table. 4 withdrawals, large, electronic signature authorization. One of them made her blink. $28,000? she asked. The associate nodded. "Yes. Dispersed via wire, certified through online credentials." "I didn't authorize that. That's not my signature." He hesitated. "You're the only listed primary on the account. Was anyone helping you manage your finances?" "My son," she said. "But that ends now." Later in Mara's office, the documents lay fanned across the table like cards in a rigged game. "That's his routing number," Lorraine said, pointing to a transfer slip. "That's the business account for that property startup he registered in 2021. Mara raised an eyebrow. "You remember that offhand?" "I may be old," Lorraine said, "but I've been watching my money longer than he's been watching YouTube tutorials on how to be your own boss." Mara leaned back, impressed. "This is enough to start building a case. Fraud, financial exploitation, misuse of fiduciary access. Combined with the forged deed, it's not just civil, it's criminal." "Then let's start the clock," Lorraine said. "No more waiting." That night, Lorraine sat in the basement of the church where the nonprofit stored its media equipment. The room smelled faintly of copier toner and mildew. Mara set up the tripod. "You sure you want to do this now?" she asked. "I'm not waiting for someone else to validate my truth." Lorraine smoothed her hair, sat tall, pressed her palm over the thick file folder of bank receipts and notarized papers. The camera blinked red. "My name is Lorraine Madsen. I'm 72 years old. And my son stole my home, my money, and my name. Here is how—" Her voice didn't crack once. When the recording finished, she emailed a copy to Mara and uploaded another to a cloud folder titled, "If I Disappear." Then she opened her browser, clicked through to a local news contact form. She didn't fill it out, not yet, but her fingers hovered over the message field. In the end, she typed just one sentence. I have proof, and it starts with a deed. The next morning, the sun came up blurry and cold. Lorraine stood at the window of the Coulsons' guest room and watched the street slowly fill with leaves that didn't know where to land. Her phone buzzed. A message from Mara. Attached. Affidavit draft. LM statement of claim. She opened the file and scrolled. Every paragraph hit like a drumbeat of clarity. Financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult, unauthorized asset liquidation, forged consent. It was all there. She sat down slowly and opened her notebook, scribbled one line across a clean page. What's the worst that could happen if I sold the house from under them? Then underneath it, she added, or better, what's the best? Because if Ethan had built this con with confidence, Lorraine was about to dismantle it with confidence. And hell hath no fury like a woman with nothing left to lose, except her patience. Minneapolis outskirts, early winter, frosted ground, silent deals, and justice disguised as paperwork. Lorraine tucked her scarf tighter as she stepped into the narrow, sunlit office of Havenstead, an aging brick building repurposed into a housing nonprofit. The receptionist offered a mug of cider and a hopeful smile. We're small, the woman said, but we believe in land with purpose. Perfect, Lorraine thought. She met with the director, a no-nonsense woman named May, who wore fingerless gloves indoors and read grant proposals like they were war reports. Lorraine explained her offer simply. Sell the land, not the structure. The house, occupied by her son and his ambition, would become a tenant, temporary. May's brows lifted, but she didn't hesitate. You want to lease them the air they're breathing, she said, until we can reclaim it? Exactly, Lorraine replied. And then I want it turned into something that gives back. Housing, communal support. No legacy names, just impact. May extended a calloused hand. You've got yourself a buyer. The paperwork moved faster than Lorraine expected. Turns out nonprofits move quickly when given clean deeds and revenge-tinged urgency. She signed the land sale in a coffee shop booth, her pen scratching against the form with the precision of a scalpel. By the end of the week, Ethan received the letter from Havenstead Community Holdings. Subject, Property Use Notification, Parcel 1192027. Dear Mr. Madsen, this notice confirms that as of December 2nd, the land beneath 1428 Elder Mill Lane is no longer yours. You have 14 calendar days to vacate the premises or begin paying monthly rent to Havenstead in accordance with nonprofit occupancy policy. Lorraine imagined his face, the arrogance melting into confusion, then rage. She didn't smile, but she did light a candle. Flashback. 2 years earlier. Ethan sat on her porch steps, head in his hands, a stack of foreclosure papers beside him. I just need $25,000 to cover the margin call, he said. Then I can refinance and fix the listing, I swear. Lorraine had looked past the messy hair into desperation. She saw the boy who used to cry when he got caught lying before he learned lies could pay better. She'd handed him the check quietly and never saw the money or the house again. Now she realized she hadn't lost it. She'd invested it in his future downfall. A week after the notice, her phone buzzed. Private number. Trish's voice cracked through like a hairline fracture. You're going to regret this, Lorraine. You have no idea how unhinged this makes you look. We can sue for emotional damages, retaliation. Lorraine put the call on speaker and set it on the table while she stirred her tea. You finished? She asked. This is illegal. I checked. It's not, Lorraine said. Ethan is your son. Lorraine let the silence stretch. Exactly. Then she ended the call and blocked the number. Later that evening, Mara texted, Media request. Channel 7 wants a comment. Lorraine typed her reply with steady fingers. Not yet. Let the silence speak first. But the next morning, her inbox had a subject line that made her pause. Havenstead, new owner welcome packet. She clicked it open. At the bottom, a signature. Welcome to the community and thank you for choosing us. Kelsey and Jordan Wright. Lorraine blinked. The young couple from the open house. She remembered their kindness, the curiosity, the way Jordan had asked, Did you live nearby? And how Kelsey had looked back at the porch like it meant something. They weren't just random buyers. They were her witnesses. Now they were the new stewards of the land. Not a twist of fate, a full circle correction. Lorraine printed the email and pinned it to her wall. The house might still look like Ethan's, but the dirt under it, that was hers again. And in 13 days, Ethan would learn what it felt like to be the one without a key. Next to the printout, she scribbled a note in black marker. You can stage a home, but you can't fake ownership. And as the snow began to fall across the yard he no longer owned, Lorraine opened a folder marked Next Moves, because this wasn't revenge, it was real estate. And she was flipping the whole narrative. Downtown Minneapolis, early evening, frost crisping sidewalks, voicemails filling with desperation, and power quietly shifting hands. Ethan's voicemail came at 6:47 p.m. Mom! I think there's been a miscommunication. This Havenstead group is being unreasonable. We just need to sit down, talk, like family. Lorraine didn't reply. She simply tapped block and placed her phone face down next to the check she was about to write. At Havenstead's new downtown annex, Lorraine stepped inside a narrow office painted in warm tones. A handwritten sign taped to the front desk read, "No one owns people, just land." And even that should be borrowed with care. Behind the desk sat Anya, a 20-something in thick glasses, a cardigan 2 sizes too big, and a look that said she'd seen more bureaucracy than she should have at her age. "You must be Lorraine," Anna said, standing to shake her hand. "We're honored, and frankly a little stunned." Lorraine raised an eyebrow. "Stunned?" Anna smiled. "Not many people fight back like this, especially not this cleanly." Lorraine didn't smile back. "It's not revenge, it's precedent." Anna nodded solemnly and led her to a small meeting room. They reviewed documents, lease terms, legal footings, and one letter already drafted and waiting for Lorraine's signature. "I wanted to run this past you," Anya said. "It's a donation form to seed a legal defense fund specifically for seniors facing fraudulent displacement. It would be the first of its kind in Hennepin County." Lorraine read the page twice. "How much will this help?" "A lot. People don't realize how often this happens. We just don't always have the resources to fight back." Lorraine signed, no hesitation, and wrote the check. Anna blinked at the amount. "You sure?" "I'm not buying justice," Lorraine said. "I'm funding resistance." Her phone buzzed again later that night, voicemail transcribed automatically. "Trish Madsen, you need help. Everyone knows you're not well. We've been patient, but this... We're talking to a lawyer. Mental instability in seniors is grounds for guardianship. Lorraine, it's not too late to make this right before someone intervenes." Lorraine deleted it, then laughed out loud for the first time in weeks. The next morning, a call came from a local number. "Miss Madsen, this is Jordan Bellamy from Channel 4. We're doing a segment on elder property fraud and heard about the Havenstead deal. Would you be willing to talk on camera?" Lorraine hesitated. "I'd consider it," she said, "on one condition." "Sure?" "My name stays off it. I'll speak, but Ethan can't know it's me." A pause on the line. "Understood. We'll blur the face, disguise the voice, just your story." Lorraine looked out her window. The snow was starting to melt in streaks across the street. "Then let's tell it." An hour later, she met Anna again to finalize paperwork. As they packed up, Anna paused. "I don't mean to overstep, but do you want to grab coffee sometime? You remind me of my grandmother. She never let anyone silence her either." Lorraine chuckled softly. "As long as you don't expect me to knit or bake." Anna grinned. "I expect you to lead." They walked out into the sharp winter light together. Lorraine adjusted her scarf against the wind. Her phone buzzed in her coat pocket again. Ethan's number, unblocked for just a second too long. She let it ring. "Are you going to answer that?" Anna asked. Lorraine looked up at the pale sky. "No," she said, "he doesn't get my voice anymore." And with that, she crossed the street, clean pavement beneath her heels, power warming her spine. Back at home, she opened her notebook and wrote one new line across a blank page. "Let them knock. I'm building my own doors now." And somewhere across town, in a house built on arrogance, the first rent notice slid through Ethan's mail slot. Unread but not unfelt. Minneapolis. Mid-morning, screens glowing, timelines shifting, and a mother's voice echoing farther than her son ever imagined. Lorraine didn't have Twitter. She found out about #manlockedoutlady when Anna texted her a screenshot. Her blurred interview clip framed by thousands of retweets. "I only gave them 10 minutes, Lorraine had said. You gave them a movement, Anna replied. The clip itself was quiet. Lorraine, backlit and silhouetted, spoke slowly. No drama, no theatrics, just, my name doesn't matter. What matters is that I raised a boy in a house I paid for, and he turned around and stole it. The camera had held on her hands, wrinkled still, but clenched just enough to suggest the fire hadn't gone out. Within 48 hours, the video had over 1.2 million views. Commenters wrote things like, "My grandma was kicked out too. I never knew what to do. I do now." She didn't lose her house, she gave it new meaning. This is elder justice with lipstick and leather gloves. Lorraine sat at her dining table with a mug of weak tea and watched the world catch up to the war she'd been fighting in. Silence. Ethan, meanwhile, was drowning. Local real estate groups cut ties. His website went offline. A client posted a 1-star review. If he treats his mother like this, how will he treat your escrow? Trish released a passive-aggressive Instagram story, a photo of herbal tea with the caption, "When everyone's watching you fall, but you already let go." Lorraine rolled her eyes, then opened her laptop and typed, "How to steal from your mother and lose everything," by a woman with receipts. She posted it on a blog hosting site Mara recommended. It wasn't flowery, it wasn't petty, it was surgical. Paragraph by paragraph, Lorraine laid out the forged documents, the wire transfers, the quote where Ethan said, "You'll thank us later." Screenshots, stamps, names. By the time she hit publish, she was already getting messages from strangers. Some just said, "Thank you." One said, "My son did the same. I thought I was the only one." Mara called that afternoon. 3 judges requested to review your case early, she said. Media pressure makes miracles. Or at least it scares clerks. "Let's keep them scared," Lorraine said. Later that week, Lorraine got a text from a number she didn't recognize. Just 2 lines. "Hi, Grandma. I'm sorry." She froze, then stared at the name. Lexi M. Ethan's daughter. 17. They hadn't spoken in 2 years. Not since the night Lorraine refused to co-sign a private college loan and got called emotionally withholding at the Thanksgiving table. Her fingers hovered over the reply, but she didn't type. Not yet. Instead, she opened the Photos app and found a picture from when Lexi was 6, standing in the backyard, covered in finger paint, holding a sign that said, "Grandma's garden grows best." Lorraine saved it to a folder marked Maybe. The next day, her doorbell rang. It was Anna holding 2 coffees and an envelope. "Don't freak out," Anna said, smiling. "But your blog post, it's being archived by the local history museum as a case study in digital civic resistance." Lorraine laughed. "That's the most ridiculous sentence I've ever heard." "It's real," Anna said. "You're becoming folklore." Lorraine raised her coffee like a toast. Let's hope I'm the kind that bites back. That night, the house was quiet. She sat in bed, robe wrapped tight, laptop screen dimmed low. She hovered over Lexi's text. Still didn't reply. Instead, she typed a single sentence in her journal. "The tree remembers the root, even when the branches forget." Then closed the cover. Because a good storm knows when to pause, and Lorraine wasn't finished building hers. Hennepin County Courthouse, early morning, gray skies outside, gray suits inside, and a forecast of reckoning. The courtroom was too warm. Lorraine sat in the front row of the plaintiff's table, blazer pressed, eyes unblinking. She didn't fidget, didn't sigh. She let silence become her armor while Ethan's lawyer talked in circles, spinning her grief into confusion and her age into incompetence. "This is, Your Honor, a tragic case of misunderstanding," the attorney said smoothly. "My client acted in what he believed were the best interests of his mother. She had verbally agreed to a transfer, a decision made under duress, perhaps, due to the emotional toll of widowhood." He turned toward the bench. "Is it possible Mrs. Madsen simply forgot?" Lorraine didn't flinch, but Mara rose before the judge could respond. If she forgot, Your Honor," Mara said, placing 3 thick binders onto the evidence cart. "She somehow also forged bank logs, created a false video testimony, and notarized her own name under penalty of perjury, which would be remarkable for someone allegedly confused." A small ripple of laughter from the gallery. The judge didn't smile, but didn't object. They moved through the facts. Bank withdrawals timed to Ethan's business emergencies, Email metadata showing Lorraine's signature applied after midnight from a different IP address. Lorraine's video testimony playing on a courtroom screen. Her voice, even and devastating. My son used my grief as an ink pad and stamped over everything I had left. Ethan shifted in his seat, jaw clenched, tie too tight. He whispered something to his attorney. Lorraine didn't look his way. The judge asked questions. Was Mrs. Madsen on any medication at the time of signing? No, Mara answered. Any diagnosis of diminished capacity? No, Your Honor. In fact, she handed over the cognitive evaluation signed by a neurologist. Exceptional executive function for her age, the judge read aloud. He tapped his pen once against the desk, then again. Outside, rain traced lines down the courthouse window. Inside, Ethan began to sweat. Trish didn't show. Her name was on the subpoena. Her seat in the gallery sat empty. Lorraine noticed and filed it away like the last page of a burned book. Ethan's lawyer attempted a motion to delay, claimed additional records were needed, that emotional strain had compromised client memory. The judge glanced at the binders on the table, at the notarized receipts, at the folder marked Plaintiff's Supporting Timeline, then at Lorraine. She stared back, still and calm. He sighed. Motion denied. Later, outside in the hallway, Lorraine and Mara stood beneath the buzzing fluorescent lights. Reporters lingered near the security exit, waiting. That went better than expected, Mara said, tucking the court folders back into her leather bag. I expected it, Lorraine replied. What I didn't expect was how easy it was to be underestimated. Mara smiled. That's your sharpest weapon, Lorraine raised an eyebrow. No, she turned toward the doors. My sharpest weapon is that I learned to wait. That night at home, Lorraine made herself tea, rooibos steeped long. She didn't sit, just stood by the window, watching the wind push through the thinning trees. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. The voicemail was short. A man's voice. Mom, I think you made your point. Can we just talk? She didn't play it again. She just wrote one word in her notebook. Almost. Because Ethan didn't know it yet, but his storm hadn't even started. Minneapolis. Late afternoon, assets collapsing, reputations unraveling, and one mother, steady in the storm. It started with a listing, then 3. By the time Friday came, Ethan had 6 properties up for motivated sale, each underpriced, scrubbed clean on the surface, but hiding rot in the walls of the deals that built them. The local MLS board noticed, then the city's real estate subreddit, then a morning show anchor who used the words fire sale and scorched legacy in the same breath. Mara texted Lorraine a screenshot of the trending segment. Mom versus son. Property wars heats up in courtroom drama. Lorraine didn't flinch. She only replied, Didn't realize I'd get top billing. At the Havenstead office, a press release went live. The house on Elder Mill Lane, once Lorraine's sanctuary, then her battlefield, would be renovated into transitional housing for displaced seniors. Lorraine proofread the statement herself. No names, she said to Anya. Just results. Anna nodded. Impact speaks louder anyway. That evening, Ethan cracked. He burst into a live stream, unshaven, eyes red, voice frantic. They're making her out to be some hero, he raged to 213 viewers. But she's unstable. She has issues, memory lapses, confusion. It's all being manipulated. Lorraine watched the clip once, then calmly dialed Sasha Rohr, the neuropsychiatrist who'd conducted her prior assessment. Can we update the evaluation? Lorraine asked. Dr. Rohr agreed. The next morning, Lorraine sat for 2 hours under bright lights and quiet questions. Name, date, place, serial recall, delayed memory, spatial patterning, ethical judgment, all perfect scores. At the end, Dr. Rohr signed a new letter. Lorraine Madsen demonstrates exceptional cognitive resilience, insight, and processing, no evidence of impairment. In fact, her faculties exceed standard metrics for her age bracket. Lorraine folded it, tucked it in a crimson folder labeled Truth. Mara forwarded the report to the court, the press, and strategically, the nonprofit legal newsletter with over 30,000 subscribers. It hit inboxes like a gavel. Ethan's narrative cracked in public, too. One outlet published a side-by-side timeline. Withdrawal date, Ethan's business purchase, Lorraine's signed consent, missing. In bold font beneath, she didn't forget. He just counted on it. The next morning, Lorraine woke early. Rain tapped at her condo windows, cold and rhythmic, like someone knocking politely before justice entered the room. She brewed her tea, rooibos again. When she sat down, her inbox held a message from Anya. Subject: Thought you'd want this. Attached: a quote from Ethan's buyer's agent, anonymously sourced. We asked about his financing. He shrugged and said, "It's not my money anyway." We thought it was a joke. Lorraine closed the laptop slowly, then picked up her pen. On the next blank page in her notebook, she wrote, "Let them cash out. I'll collect what matters." And just as she set the notebook down, her phone buzzed. A voicemail from a number tagged as unlisted. She played it once. A quiet voice, broken only by heavy breathing and the sound of someone trying not to cry. "Mom, the house. They're taking it. They said we have 2 weeks. You win, okay? You got what you wanted. Just please stop." Lorraine stared at the floor for a long moment, then deleted the message. Because this wasn't about winning. It was about reminding the world that a signature forged might buy you a moment, but character that cashes out every time. And Ethan was broke. Hennepin County Courthouse. Early spring. Verdict day. The thaw between betrayal and reckoning. Lorraine didn't dress for war. She dressed like it was any other day. Charcoal slacks, navy blouse, simple earrings, the kind her husband used to compliment without words, just a look. She stood outside the courthouse doors for a beat too long, then stepped inside without flinching. Courtroom 4B buzzed. Reporters clustered at the back. A court sketch artist set up near the gallery, pen twitching. Ethan sat 2 tables away, jaw tight, suit wrinkled at the collar, like it had been repurposed from apologies. His lawyer whispered in his ear. He didn't look at Lorraine. She didn't look at him either. She looked at the judge. The ruling came not as a thunderclap, but as a storm building behind every sentence. The court finds the transfer of property to have been executed without lawful consent. Lorraine didn't breathe. And supported by forged documentation, unauthorized financial redirection, and breach of fiduciary trust. The judge turned to Ethan, who finally looked up, face pale, mouth open as if disbelief were still an option. You are hereby ordered to vacate the premises within 7 calendar days, repay liquidated damages as listed in the financial audit, and cooperate with the ongoing criminal investigation, now referred to the county attorney's office. Lorraine heard it all. She didn't blink, didn't cry, just whispered, "Thank you." Not to the judge, but to herself. After the ruling, Lorraine walked out into the weak spring sun, a press swarm rising behind her. "Miss Madsen, how does it feel? What will you do with the house? Did you ever expect justice?" She held up one hand, graceful, not dismissive, and kept walking. Some things weren't for cameras. Later that afternoon, Lorraine stood in front of the house one last time. The Eldermill Lane sign looked faded, but the earth beneath it, hers again. May from Havenstead waited by the sidewalk, key in hand, clipboard tucked under her arm. Lorraine didn't reach for it yet. She stepped onto the porch, letting the silence settle. The porch where Charles had once changed a light bulb without asking, where Lexi had spilled juice at age 6, where Ethan had stood asking for a check she should never have signed. She inhaled, not for closure, for clearance. May handed her the key. "It's yours to give now." Lorraine nodded, then held it out. "For shelter," she said, "for community, not legacy." May took it. "We'll make it count." Just then, a man in a flannel jacket paused on the sidewalk. Mid-30s, thin beard, stranger. "You're her, aren't you?" he asked gently. "The one they locked out?" Lorraine tilted her head. "I am." "My mom went through something similar. She didn't fight. You did." He nodded once. "You help more than you know." Lorraine watched him walk away, then looked back at the house. She didn't wave goodbye. She didn't need to. "I just cleaned house," she whispered. Back at her condo, Mara was waiting with wine and something else in her eyes. "A package came for me this morning," she said, "from Trish." Lorraine paused, coat still halfway off. "What kind of package?" Mara handed her a thumb drive. She recorded him, Ethan, months ago, full audio. He talks about forging the forms, says you'd never fight it. Says, and I quote, "If she gets loud, we gaslight and get guardianship." Lorraine stood still. The words didn't hurt, they clarified. "She never turned it in?" "She did, now, and it's already been submitted to the DA's office." Lorraine took the drive, not as a trophy, as a record. Proof that even the people who stand beside monsters sometimes leave the cage door open. That night, Lorraine poured herself a glass of wine. Red, dry, no ice. She didn't toast, didn't gloat. She simply opened her notebook to a new page and wrote, "They evicted me, so I exiled them." And beneath it, smaller, "The house is warm again because the lies are out." She didn't press play on the recording, not yet. Some victories don't need to be heard twice, especially when the silence afterward says everything. Hennepin County Jail, visitation wing, plastic chairs, plexiglass, and the brittle quiet between endings and accountability. Lorraine sat down first. The chair wobbled slightly on uneven linoleum, but she didn't adjust it. Across the scratched glass, Ethan was already seated, orange jumpsuit, hands cuffed to a metal bar under the desk. His hair was longer, less managed. His face looked smaller without entitlement stretched across it. She didn't pick up the phone, not right away. He tapped the glass once, an unsure smile. Lorraine raised the receiver slowly, controlled. "You came," he said, voice raspy with rehearsal. "I wasn't sure you would." "I didn't come for closure," she replied. "I came for clarity." Ethan exhaled, laughing like it hurt. "I'm not proud of what happened, but Trish, she knew how to push me. She said if we didn't act fast, we'd lose everything." "Trish didn't forge my signature," Lorraine said. "You did." His eyes flared. "She said you'd never fight it, that you'd forget or freeze up like you always do. Like after Dad died." "She didn't know me. You did." Ethan looked down, his fingers twitched against the cuffs, trying to perform sympathy with no audience left to believe it. "I thought I was protecting us," he mumbled. "Building something!" Lorraine shook her head once, not in anger, not even disbelief, just a measured finality. "You weren't building, you were flipping," she said. "Flipping my name, my grief, my generosity for a down payment on an identity you couldn't afford?" He looked up, and for a flash, just one, he wasn't the man who'd stolen her house. He was the boy who once cried when he lost his toy in the backyard and blamed the wind. But even then, he hadn't searched for it himself. He'd waited for her to find it. "You think I'm a monster?" Ethan whispered. "No," Lorraine said. "Monsters have power. You traded yours for commission." Flashback. Lorraine standing at the dining room window 30 years earlier. Ethan, 8 years old, stomping his foot because she wouldn't buy him the newest game console. "You never say yes the first time," he snapped, "and you never say thank you the second time." She'd answered. Entitlement had started then, not with rage, but with the assumption of inheritance, of automatic loyalty. She had thought love would outgrow it. It hadn't. Back in the jail, Ethan leaned forward. "So this is it?" he asked. Lorraine studied him. He still wanted her to grant something. Absolution, attention, even blame. Anything but silence. She stood. "This is not it," she said. "This is the beginning of mine." She replaced the receiver gently in its cradle and walked out. Outside, the wind bit through her coat, but she didn't hurry. She looked up at the sky, low gray clouds drifting like they were finally tired of holding back. Her phone buzzed once, a text from Mara. "Grand jury accepted. Trisha's recording, charges pending." Lorraine tucked the phone away without replying. She had a garden to visit. 20 minutes later, she stood behind Havenstead's new community project on Eldermill Lane. The yard had been cleared. Foundation work for the shelter was underway. Children's chalk decorated the sidewalk. Bright, messy spirals and stick figures drawn by the volunteers' kids. One had scrolled a message in blue. "Welcome home, whoever you are, you matter." Lorraine reached down, smoothed her hand over the dusty lettering. A Havenstead staffer approached, young, nervous. "Miss Madsen, sorry to interrupt. There's someone here asking for you. Says her name is Lexi." Lorraine blinked. "Wants to talk," the woman said softly. "Just talk." Lorraine didn't move at first, then slowly stood and nodded once. One moment. She reached into her bag, pulled out her notebook, and scribbled a final thought on the last page. Redemption doesn't come wrapped. It knocks. Sometimes twice. She closed it and turned toward the gate. Toward a granddaughter, maybe. Toward what came next. Downtown Minneapolis. Clean lines, quiet resolve, and a second act built with both hands. The condo wasn't large, but it was hers. 2 bedrooms, 1.5 baths, maple floors that creaked in honest places. No one had ever handed Lorraine the keys to a life like this. She had pried them from locked doors and learned how to keep them. She unpacked slow, one box at a time. No rush. She arranged the teacups Charles once teased her for collecting. hung a framed blueprint of Eldermill Lane, now annotated with the words "Community Shelter Approved." On the second night, she opened the last sealed envelope she'd been avoiding. Charles's handwriting, looping, careful, a birthday card he'd written before his final hospital stay. "You always were stronger than you thought," it read. "Just don't wait for someone else to say it." She closed it, set it on the windowsill like a benediction. At Havenstead, Lorraine started volunteering. Not full shifts, just a few hours each week. Paperwork review, application help. Her eyes caught inconsistencies before the software did, and her voice, though soft, carried authority, the way only lived experience can. Anna grinned every time Lorraine walked through the door, started saving her the good pens, left mugs of peppermint tea on her side of the desk. One Thursday afternoon, Anna muttered over her shoulder, "You know, if you ever get tired of being intimidating and brilliant, we could use you on the advisory board." Lorraine didn't answer, but she smiled the whole way home. The letters started arriving soon after. Her case file was added to the statewide elder protection database. Not emails, actual letters, handwritten, sometimes tear-streaked, always fierce. One from a woman in Duluth. "My niece took out a reverse mortgage I never agreed to." Another from Rochester. "My son thinks my name means his business." They didn't ask for help. They thanked her for giving them permission to start helping themselves. Lorraine kept each one in a linen folder marked Voices. Weeks later, Mara called with an invitation. "Local event," she said. "Coalition for Elder Autonomy. They want you to speak. It's just 10 minutes. You can say no." Lorraine paused. "I'm not a speaker." "You weren't a plaintiff either," Mara said. "Until you were." That night, Lorraine sat at her desk rereading the letters. She didn't write a speech. She wrote a truth. At the event, a rented community hall off Nicolet, folding chairs lined the parquet floor. Most of the audience wore age on their faces, but not defeat. When Lorraine stepped onto the low stage, her heels didn't echo, but her presence did. She wore gray slacks, a navy blouse, and Charles's handwriting tucked inside her blazer pocket. "I don't like microphones," she began, a light laugh. "I like homes, not just the buildings. The idea that where you live is where you belong." She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "I was erased by people I raised, but I wrote myself back in." Applause rose, measured, not explosive. The kind that meant someone had heard and understood. Back home, she poured a glass of water. No wine tonight. She sat on her couch, windows open to a quiet street. The world moved outside her. Not without her. She opened the card again. Charles's words were just ink on old paper, but they still held. Her phone buzzed, a text from Anna. "Want to help lead a workshop on financial resilience? We can call it The Woman Who Stayed. Your title, not mine." Lorraine typed a reply, paused, then changed her answer. "Call it The Woman Who Stayed Standing." And somewhere in the city, another envelope was being sealed, this time addressed Miss Lorraine Madsen, civic speaker, elder advocate, the woman who stayed. She folded the card, placed it in a box marked Keep, then opened a fresh notebook and began writing again. Because stories like hers don't end, they echo. And Lorraine had more to say. Legal offices, locked accounts, and the quiet machinery of permanent closure. Lorraine sat at her kitchen table, back straight, phone in one hand, pen in the other. Her tea had gone cold. She didn't care. "Confirm the freeze," she told the bank rep. "All linked accounts, joint, former, dormant, anything he could have slipped a finger into." The woman on the line hesitated. "You sure you want to close the 2005 account? It's nearly empty, but that's the one he started the shell business from." A pause. "Understood, Miss Madsen, done." Lorraine hung up, flipped to the next page in her notebook. "Notify all institutions. File formal ROFR. Call DA's office reprobation." The second strike wouldn't be legal whiplash. It would be precise demolition. The restraining order was filed before noon. Mara drafted it herself. No paralegals, no templates, clean. She said, "No ambiguity. You'll never hear from him again, legally, digitally, or otherwise." "What if he tries?" Mara shrugged. "Then we file again." Louder. Lorraine signed. Her pen didn't hesitate. That afternoon, Trish's name popped up in Mara's inbox. Subject: Statement of Dissolution and Willing Witness. Attached: divorce papers, timeline, receipts, and a formal offer to testify in support of Lorraine's civil claim. She's flipping to save herself, Mara muttered. Let her, Lorraine said. As long as she lands somewhere I'm not. The mediation date came quickly. Neutral territory, a bland office suite on the 6th floor of a downtown tower, legal art on the walls, scales, bridges, trees in full leaf, the kind of peace you print when real peace is unavailable. Lorraine arrived early. She brought no folder, no notebook, just herself in slate gray wool and quiet confidence. Ethan arrived late. He looked smaller, cleaner, but like he was trying to wear the performance of remorse like cologne, visible, over-applied, and cheap. He didn't look at her, which was fine. She had nothing left to offer him. The mediator began the session, voice too cheerful. Let's clarify the objective today: asset disbursement, contact restrictions, and any final agreements. Lorraine interrupted gently. There's no disbursement. Everything's already returned or surrendered. The mediator blinked. Then just closure? Lorraine tilted her head. We're not ending a case, she said. We're ending permission. The room went still. Ethan flinched, barely, but Lorraine caught it. That one word, permission. It landed where years of pleading hadn't, because for too long she had permitted silence, excused convenience, allowed access, no more. After the session, Lorraine stepped into the restroom, washed her hands, and looked at her reflection in the mirror. Not angry, not righteous, just finished. The way a mountain is finished after the fire passes through. Scorched clean, but still standing. She smiled, not at herself, but at what she saw behind her eyes. Back at her condo, the rain had started again. A steady spring kind of rain, the kind that didn't threaten. It swept. Lorraine put on music. Old vinyl, Charles's favorite jazz record, one she hadn't touched in years. Then she opened her linen folder of letters, now thick, worn at the edges. She added one more, this one from a woman in Kansas City. My brother said I was imagining things until I showed them your blog. Lorraine folded it, tucked it in the back. Underneath, she found the smallest envelope, one she hadn't seen before. Lexi's handwriting. Just one line inside. I see it now. I don't know what comes next, but I believe you. I believe you. Lorraine didn't cry. She read it twice, then set it beside Charles's card on the windowsill. The light caught both. 2 generations. 2 voices that mattered again. And in that moment, Lorraine didn't feel triumphant. She felt still. And stillness, she realized, was the most powerful ending of all. Because it meant nothing was chasing her anymore. Only waiting for her next move. Minneapolis. Early summer. Soft sun. Firm boundaries. And the last door she'll ever close. Lorraine stood in the DA's office, hands folded. Not nervous, just resolved. We can file a second criminal complaint, the prosecutor said. Shell company fraud, misrepresentation, attempted coercive leverage. Lorraine shook her head. No, he blinked. You're declining to press charges? She nodded once. He's not worth more of my time. A pause. Are you sure? I'm sure of this, Lorraine said. I want to spend the rest of my life in peace, not in paperwork tied to him. And with that, she signed the formal withdrawal. Not forgiveness, just refusal. Refusal to let him take another minute. Back at Mara's office, they finalized the codicil to Lorraine's estate. Clause 37, Mara read aloud, states that Ethan James Madsen shall be legally and permanently barred from receiving, accessing, or challenging any portion of assets held, transferred, or endowed by Lorraine Margaret Madsen. No contest clause enforced. Irrevocable. Lorraine signed without hesitation. Print it twice, she said. One for the records, one for the fireproof box. That weekend, the community shelter held a quiet ceremony. No media, no speeches. Just the core staff, a few volunteers, and Lorraine in a seafoam scarf and practical flats, holding a key. It wasn't the original. That one had vanished long ago, lost in a shuffle of deceit and assumption. But this one mattered more, because it opened something that stayed open. She stood on the porch, the same porch where Charles once stood with sunburned arms and a soda can, and turned to May. It's yours now, she said. May smiled. We'll take care of it. I know. Lorraine held out the key, solid brass, polished clean. As May took it, the volunteers applauded softly. One of them handed Lorraine a small gift, a clay tile hand-painted in blue. Etched into it, you didn't just unlock a door, you unlocked dignity. Lorraine didn't speak. She just bowed her head and exhaled. a decade. Her 73rd birthday arrived with lilacs in bloom and zero expectations, but the living room filled anyway. Anna brought cupcakes with gold candles and insisted on leading a toast. To the sharpest, kindest woman I know, and the only one who makes legal clauses sound like poetry. Everyone laughed. Lorraine rolled her eyes but stayed quiet until Anna leaned over after dessert, arms wrapped around her tightly. "Happy birthday, Grandma." It wasn't said as a joke. Lorraine's breath caught. She held on longer than she meant to, and when she let go, she smiled. "Thank you," she whispered, "for finding me after the fall." That night, after everyone left, Lorraine cleaned up slowly. She rinsed teacups, folded napkins. She lit a single candle and sat by the window with her notebook. She didn't write, not yet. She thought about Ethan, how blood had built him, but how choices, moment by moment, had built her. There was power in that, not the loud kind, the kind that carried you through storms. Just before dusk, Lorraine put on her coat and walked 4 blocks to Eldermill Lane. She didn't go inside. She didn't need to. Through the windows, she saw laughter, real, bright, ordinary. A woman setting the dinner table, 2 men unpacking sheets, a dog curled in a patch of sunlight. It wasn't hers anymore, that was the point. She smiled, then turned the corner, her pace steady, her shadow long and light. The neighborhood hadn't changed. She had. They changed the locks, so I changed my